I put it in the title like that. We'll see why that is in the next chapter. I'll go a little bit more into detail on the and etc. part. But here we're going to start with Genesis 18, starting with verse 1. It says, "And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day." All right, so it says the Lord appeared unto Abraham. All right, we know this was not the Father because we saw the Father. He said that no man can see my face and live. That's what he told Moses in Exodus 33. All right. Also, the book of John starts off by saying that no man has seen God at any time. All right. Except for the Son, right? Except for Christ. Verse 2, "And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself to the ground." All right. So these 3 men are Christ and 2 angels. All right. That's who these 3 men are. We see that because the next chapter, we see that it's 2 angels that went to Sodom and Gomorrah, or rather Sodom specifically. So this other man is the Lord, right? Because usually when it says like an angel appeared, it will specifically say an angel or it will say God, all right? Uppercase G, lowercase o, lowercase d, right? But when it's saying the Lord specifically, that's how you know it's talking about Christ. And notice what happened. He said, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground, right? So you don't run to meet somebody unless you recognize them, all right? When you see people walking by or even walking to you, you don't run to meet them unless you recognize them, all right? So how does Abraham recognize the Lord? Because he saw him in Genesis 14, what we read last week, all right? He recognizes... in Genesis 14, it calls him Melchizedek, all right, which means king of righteousness, all right, and king of Salem, right, king of what would later be known as Jerusalem, but in specifically Genesis 14, king of Salem, king of peace, you know. So Abraham recognizes him from when he saw him in Genesis 14. Now he sees him again, he runs to meet him, all right, and said, "My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant." Now, my Lord was a general term that people would use for anyone who was in authority over them. But this my Lord right here is the same as you read in Psalms 110, where David said, "The Lord said unto my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make thy enemies thy footstool." All right, this is the same type of recognition here, because this is my lowercase Lord. All right. "And if now I found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. After that ye shall pass on. For therefore are ye come to your servant." And they said, "So do as thou hast said." All right, so Abraham said, "Look, hey, get comfortable, sit and get comfortable. We're going to have a meal together, all right? I'm going to host a feast, essentially, for you." All right. "And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto a young man, and he hasted to dress it." Right. So notice here, when Abraham told Sarah to do something, she didn't say, "Well, why you want me to do that? There was no lip. She just went and did it. All right. "And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree, and they did eat." All right. So yeah, he's making this feast for the Lord and the 2 angels. "And they said unto him, Where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son." Notice I said, "and he said." Who is the he? It's the Lord. It's Christ. The 2 angels are there to go on the mission that we see in the next chapter. All right. "And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age. And it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women, meaning she's already been through menopause. She stopped having her period long ago. She's like 90 years old here. All right. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? Right? So they had stopped having sex. That's how old they were. All right. Because they didn't care about sex anymore. They didn't have any pleasure in sex anymore. That's how old they were. All right. Abraham being 100, Sarah being 90. All right. So she's laughing at this idea that she's going to have a baby. All right. And the Lord said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Right. So notice how in verse 12 it says, Sarah laughed within herself. She didn't even laugh out loud. She's kind of chuckled to herself. All right. But the Lord, obviously, he sees and hears all things. He said, hey, why is she laughing? Why is your wife laughing? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee according to the time of life, meaning in 9-10 months. And Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laugh not, for she was afraid. And he said, nay, but thou didst laugh. Right? So imagine you just kind of eavesdropping, because that's what she's doing. She's just kind of eavesdropping on this conversation, kind of chuckled to herself, and then somebody calls you out for it. That's what's going on right here. And she's like, I didn't laugh. The Lord's like, yeah, yes you did. Yes, you laughed. Oh, wow. Verse 16. And the men rose up from thence and looked toward Sodom. And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord, to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of him. Right? So the Lord's saying, look, I'm going to reveal something to you, Abraham, something that I'm about to do, because you're my friend. I know that you're going to serve me. I know that you're going to do everything you're supposed to do. And I trust you, Abraham. That's what the Lord is saying here. And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me. And if not, I will know. You see that right there? So if this is the Most High, right? The omniscient, all-knowing God, why does he have to go inspect? You see what I'm saying? This is Christ and the angels. Christ is nigh omniscient, but he doesn't know everything. Christ doesn't even know when he's going to return. All right? At that point, he will be omniscient, because that's, as far as I can tell, that's the last thing that he doesn't know. But the point is, at this point, this is Christ and the two angels. All right? They don't know whether or not the prayers that they've heard are legitimate or not. Are the people exaggerating about all the evils that's going on in this city? We got to go inspect. We got to go find out for ourselves. All right? And the men, I think I just read that. No. Verse 22. And the men turned their faces from thence and went towards Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord. Right? So the angels, they are already walking that way. But Abraham's staying close to Christ. And Abraham drew near and said, wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure, there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are therein? Right? So Abraham's looking out for his nephew, Lot. He knows that his nephew is in Sodom. So he's trying to say, hey, what if there's only 50 righteous? You're going to destroy the city for them? Or are you going to destroy them with the city? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked. That be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? You see that right there? So Abraham's like, I know that you're not a God who's going to kill the righteous with the wicked. I know that's not the case. Let that be far from you. Don't do that. And the Lord said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. You see that right there? He said, I'll preserve the whole city. City full of thousands of people, if there's only 50 righteous there. And Abraham answered and said, behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. He said, look, I know I'm not worthy to speak to you like this. Peradventure, there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. But I'll destroy all the city for the lack of 5. You see that right there? So he's like, look, what if you only found 45? Are you still going to destroy those 45 righteous? And he said, if I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again, and said, peradventure, there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. He said unto him, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. He's like, yeah, I know I'm pushing it. I know I got you down to 40. I know I'm still pushing it. Peradventure, there shall 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, behold, now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure, there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. And he said, oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And the Lord went his way as soon as he had left communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned unto his place. You see that right there? So the Lord went his way. Abraham went his way. He got the Lord down to 10, right? Down to, if there's only 10 righteous, he'll preserve the city full of thousands if there are only 10 righteous within Sodom. All right. And here in Genesis 19, you see, starting with verse 1, and there came 2 angels to Sodom at even. These are the 2 angels who walked down towards Sodom that we read about in last chapter. All right. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, behold, now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night. Right? So Lot recognized that these 2 were strangers. They're not from Sodom. All right? And notice when referring to the angels, it says, my lords, lowercase l, O-R-D-S, right? And in the last chapter, referred to, when talking about Christ, he said, my Lord, uppercase L, lowercase o, lowercase r, lowercase d. But they said, no, we're just going to be out in the streets all night, see what pops off, you know? And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him. So he said, please, don't stay out in the streets. It gets rough out here in these streets. Come on in. And entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot, and said unto him, where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. Now, this isn't talking about, shaking hands, introducing yourself, getting to know them. This is talking about a gang rape. That's what this is talking about. All right. Sodom was not, because people talk about Sodom as in like gay, but yeah, I mean, it was gay, but it's gay rape. It's a gay rape culture that was in Sodom. All right. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters, which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do you to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. He's like, look, don't add sin to sin. If you're just looking to have sex, I got 2 daughters here. Like, don't turn it into something even more wicked than what y'all already are. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. He's like, why? They say, only God can judge me. That's what they said. They said, only God can judge me. You ain't even from here, and you gonna try to judge us. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them? They said, look, we about to get your ass now, right? And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand, and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut to the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. You see that right there? So they blinded them, and they still trying to get in, right? And it said both small and great, as in like there was like teenagers that were part of this gang rape culture as well, like young ones and old men. So verse 12. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of this place. Right? So the angels are like, okay, we've seen enough. Let's get out of here. Lot, you're the only righteous person we found. Let's get out of here. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord. And the Lord has sent us to destroy it. You see that right there? So they said straight up, look, we were here on a reconnaissance mission to see if there's any righteous here. We've seen all we need to see. It's it. It's a wrap. All right. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. You see that right there? So the sons-in-law, they didn't believe him. All right. The men who was promised to his daughters, they didn't believe him. All right. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth and set him without the city. Right? So the angels took everybody, not everybody, but Lot and his family. They took him out the city. All right. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. You see that right there? So they said, look, we're about to drop fire from heaven on all of this. All right. Now, whether you want to say that's direct fire coming down like a laser beam or whatever, or like meteors, like however you want to describe that. But that's what they're about to do to it. And they said, look, don't look back, keep running, or else you'll be consumed in this fire that we're bringing. And Lot said unto them, Oh, not so, my Lord. Behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me, and I die. He said, look, we can't make it all the way to the mountain. We're not going to be able to make it all the way to the mountain. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, and I will not overthrow the city for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. Now, as far as Zoar, the meaning of the word Zoar, does it mean? I'm not sure what it means, to be honest with you. Let's see if it has it here in the 1611 KJV, if it has it out to the side when it comes to Zoar. They'll have like translations and things like that out to the side. Let's see. Chapter 19 and what verse are we looking at? 19 and Zoar. Where's Zoar? Gone forth. No, excuse me. Yeah, for some reason Zoar is not, what was that, verse 23? No, I don't think it's gone forth. I'm tripping. Let's see. Cannot do anything till thou come thither. Haste, probably haste, if I had to guess. Give me 1 second. I'll look it up real quick. Name, meaning. Small city. Zoar is a small city. All right. Said this small city over here. It's a little one, as it said up here in verse 20. It's a little one. All right, but the angels are saying, look, we can't destroy the city until you get out of here, so go. All right, you can go to Zoar. You don't necessarily have to run all the way to the mountain, but get out of here. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Right, so brimstone and fire makes me believe is meteors. All right. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground, right? So just everything, all right? He overthrew those cities. He destroyed everything when it comes to those cities. But one thing that I do want to point out is that it just says Sodom and Gomorrah, but this was actually a collection of cities. It was more than just Sodom and Gomorrah. It was 5 cities total. I believe Moses spake on this. Let's see, in Deuteronomy 29. I may have this twisted, but y'all bear with me for a second. Let's see. I may have to look for it if it's not here. Yeah. So this is what Deuteronomy 29 and 23 says. And that the whole land thereof is brimstone and salt and burning, that it is not sown, nor beareth, nor any grass groweth therein, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboam, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. So it's at least those 4 cities. Lasha was another one that was mentioned in Genesis 10. It was a collection of 5 cities. At the very least, 4 of them were destroyed. Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboam, possibly Lasha as well, because it's all in that mix. So I don't know why it wouldn't have been destroyed as well. So when it says he overthrew those cities, he's talking about that whole collection of cities, not just Sodom and Gomorrah. It was more than that. All right. Verse 26. And that which grew on the ground. Verse 26. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. So that's why, and it's a similar effect with the with nuclear missiles. Whenever those tests are done, the people who are watching got to wear special glasses or even look away entirely, because when that fire drops, if you watch it, it's going to blind you. And we see in this case, completely dehydrated Lot's wife. Turned her into a pillar of salt, because if you take the water out of people, what do we have? Just the salts, you know what I'm saying? Salts and minerals and stuff that make us up. So yeah, she looked back, and the reason why she looked back, it's not because, I want to see this devastation that's happening. She's like, I forgot this. That mentality of, well, what about this? I got to go back for this. She looked back, boom. That was it. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in the which Lot dwelt. Right? So you got to picture Abraham in this moment. He got up, ran, looking, because he heard the commotion. He got up, ran, looking, and he saw that, God did destroy those cities. But as far as I can tell, at this point, Abraham don't even know that Lot was delivered. So, you got to imagine the mindset of not only Lot, but of Abraham in this moment as well. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain. So they did end up going all the way to the mountain. And his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar. Right? So he didn't know if the angels were coming back to kill everything else as well. They didn't know. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Right? So his daughters thought the whole world was destroyed. All right? Because, if you see all the cities around you go up in smoke, right, be destroyed, what are you going to think, Now, this next part's where they go off, though. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. You see that right there? So they were going to date rape him. They said, hey, look, let's date rape him. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down nor when she arose. Right? They got him blackout drunk. He don't know what happened. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine last night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Right? So they both, not only is it incestuous, but it's date rape. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab, the same as the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. Right? That's where you get your Chinese and Japanese. And that's why their eyes look like that. Is because they got mongoloid eyes. They got mongoloid features. And I say mongoloid specifically because that's what they used to call Downs. If you look at Downs, people with Down syndrome, they got the same type of eyes. That's how Moab and Ben-Ami came out. They come out, deformed because they were made a product of incest, And now you do see like the epicanthic fold. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to the eyes. It's called the epicanthic fold, the slanted eyes. You do see that occasionally in various tribes throughout the earth. You see it occasionally, and that's always either because the people in those tribes mixed with Moab and Ammon in the past, or there was also some, incestuous breeding somewhere along those lines. But the only people who all of them have that is Moab and Ammon, the Chinese and Japanese. So let's keep going. Genesis chapter 20. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. I wonder if he's going to show it on the map, because this is all like Philistine type areas. Let's see. I don't know if it'll show Gerar. And that Old Testament map that I usually like going to, it don't show everything. This might be a little better. Now, clearly this map is from years and centuries later, but I believe it'll still show Gerar. Yeah, down here, Gerar. So this is like Philistine adjacent type land. Not quite Gaza, but getting in that whole region. So that's like Philistine type area. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, Behold, thou art but a dead man for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. Right? So the woman, so God appeared to Abimelech in a dream and said, hey, look, don't do anything to or with Sarah. She's married. So don't become an adulterer. But Abimelech had not come near her. And he said, Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation? Said he not unto me, she is my sister. And she herself said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands have I done this. Right? So he said, look, I didn't know she was married. They lied to me. They tricked me. And God said unto him in a dream, Yea, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart. For I also withheld thee from sinning against me. You see that right there? So God said, look, that's why I'm coming to you in this dream, so that you don't sin against me. I'm warning you, don't have sex with Sarah. Don't marry Sarah. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet. And he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou restore her not, know thou that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. Right? So he said, look, give him back his wife. He's a prophet. He'll pray for you. Everything will be good. All right, but do not touch her. Therefore Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told all these things in their ears. And the men were so afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said unto him, What hast thou done unto us? And what have I offended thee, that thou hast brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What sawest thou that thou hast done this thing? He's like, why would you lie to me about this? And Abraham said, Because I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. Right? That we saw that last week as well when reading, I believe it was Genesis 12. That this is a trick that Abraham pulled everywhere. All right. He would say, hey, look, he would tell Sarah, hey, look, say you're my sister so the people don't try to kill me to get to you. All right. And yet, indeed, she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. Right? So just reading this at face value, it would appear that Sarah is Abraham's half-sister. I believe I read somewhere that this is actually when he says, where is it? The daughter of my father. He's talking about the granddaughter of his father, as in like she is his niece technically, because she was married, or rather that she was the daughter of Haran. I read that somewhere. I can't recall, but yeah, they were related. And it came to pass when God caused me to wander from my father's house that I said unto her, this is thy kindness which thou shalt show unto me. At every place whither we shall come, say of me, he is my brother. You see that right there? So yeah, again, he just told Abimelech straight up, like, this is a trick I pull everywhere. And Abimelech took sheep and oxen and men servants and women servants and gave them unto Abraham and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimelech said, behold, my land is before thee. Dwell where it pleaseth thee. And unto Sarah he said, behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes unto all that are with thee, and with all other. Thus she was reproved. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservants, and they bare children. For the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech, because Sarah, Abraham's wife. So that shows you they were there in Gerar in this whole situation for about a few months, if not, a year or two. And this whole time, God had, made it so Abimelech's wife and his family couldn't have children. And then that's when the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, hey, here's why this is happening. Here's why I'm doing this. Don't mess with my prophets, right? Touch not mine anointed, as the Psalms say. All right, so Genesis 21. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said. And the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. Isaac means laughter. Originally in Genesis 17, God named Isaac laughter based on Abraham's laughter, but then we saw in Genesis 18 earlier, based off Sarah's laughter as well. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Right, so that goes back to what we was reading last week, the covenant of circumcision. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. You see that right there? He was 100 years old. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. You see that right there? So Sarah's like, hey, all over the world, people are going to be laughing with me, because I finally give birth to a son. I finally give birth to a child in my old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned. All right, so weaned at that time, children, little toddlers, would stay on the titty till they're about 3 or 4. All right. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking. Right, he's playing a little bit too rough with Isaac. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. You see that right there? So Sarah's like, get rid of him. Get rid of him. All right, Ishmael is not going to be the heir. Get him out of here. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice. For in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Right? So God is saying to Abraham, no, listen to Sarah. I told you this whole time that I was going to give you a son by Sarah. It's Isaac. I'm not dealing with Ishmael. Send them on their way. All right? And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. Right? So God said, look, I'll bless Ishmael, don't worry about it. He's going to become a nation as well, but he's not chosen. All right? I'm going to deal with him for your sake, Abraham. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it unto Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. So Beersheba is the south. I suppose at this point they're still in Gerar, or at least the area of Gerar. But Beersheba is, as you can see, down here. So this that desert that's down there south of Judah. All right. Wilderness of Beersheba. Where's that at? Okay, verse 15. And the water was spent in the bottle, and she cast the child under one of her shrubs. And she went and sat her down over against him a good way off, as it were a bow shot. For she said, let me not see the death of the child, right? So she thinks they're about to starve, about to die of thirst. And she sat over against him and lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad. And the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said unto her, what aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thy hand, for I will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the bottle with water and gave the lad drink. So I do want people to keep in mind here that this lad, right, the young Ishmael, is like 16, 17 years old. All right. He's not like a baby. He's 13 years older than Isaac, and Isaac has been weaned at this point. All right. So he's like basically an adult. Not quite an adult yet. That's why I still refers to him as a lad, but he's an older teenager at this point. All right. And God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran. And his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. All right. So, and that's Hagar's people, is the people of Egypt. All right. All right. So, verse 22. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou doest. Now, therefore, swear unto me here, by God, that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. All right, so Abimelech saying, hey, look, bless me, never deal falsely with me again, and I know that God is with you, so please bless me. All right. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I wot not who had done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it but today. Right. So there was a well that he's saying, hey, look, you encroaching on some stuff that's mine. Like, I dig this well, and now here come your servants trying to take it away. Abimelech's like, I don't know nothing about that. Now, whether that's true or not, only God knows. But Abimelech swears up and down, hey, I ain't heard, this is the first time I'm hearing of it. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant as in a agreement. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flocks by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, what mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, for these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that they may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, the well of the oath, the well of the oath. That's what Beersheba means. Because there they swear, both of them. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up, and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. And just so y'all understand, and I've probably explained this before, but I'll do it again. It says the chief captain of his host would be his army. All right, the chief captain obviously would be like the general or whatever the head of the army would be considered. They returned into the land of the Philistines, and Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the Philistines' land many days. So now I'm torn, to be honest. I kind of want to start next week with Genesis 22 because of how impactful it is, and it'll give us a bit more time to go into it. But also I know we got like 15 minutes. So how long is it? It's not even that long. I'm going to go ahead and go into it. Verse 1, and it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son. Right, so it was the 4 of them that went up to Mount Moriah. And clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again unto you. Right, so this is heavy right here, because Abraham, he didn't even hesitate when God told him, hey, go sacrifice your son Isaac. Abraham didn't even hesitate. He went up. And notice this is days and days. This is the 3rd day that they finally got to the place where God had told them about. So, but he said, hey, the 2 sons, or rather the 2 servants, y'all stay back. Me and my son will go and we'll offer up the burnt offering. This is heavy. This is heavy right here. And notice when it says the lad, it doesn't say a specific age that Isaac was at this time. The lad means that he's, not a full adult yet, but as we saw with Ishmael, you could be 17, 18 years old and still be considered a lad, 16, 17, whatever. Still be considered a lad. So, I'm saying anywhere from 10 to 15-ish. That's the age of Isaac here. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together, right? So Abraham never even told Isaac what the Lord had told him here. All right. He said, look, I have faith that God will provide. All right. In the most general sense. And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order and bound Isaac his son. And laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. So it got to the point where Abraham's he got his fist back ready to do it, right? He's got the knife in his hand ready to do it. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. Right? So, I do want to read this next verse. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. You see that right there. So, now, going back to Genesis 17 and all the things that the Lord had told Abraham of his son Isaac, specifically Isaac, that I would make of him a great nation, the multitude of the stars would be the would be the number of his seed, the sand of the sea. And Hebrews kind of expounds on this in Hebrews 11. It talks about how Abraham had faith that God was able to resurrect Isaac from the dead. Even though he wanted to, or rather, even though he asked Abraham to sacrifice him, Abraham had that faith that God would still somehow make of Isaac this great nation that he already promised, because he knows the Lord will keep his covenant, right? Also, the other side of this, why would God be asking Abraham to sacrifice his only son? Notice that's what it said earlier. He said, thine only son. Take now thy son, thine only son. Right? As we was talking about in Genesis 18, God trusts Abraham. You can say the relationship between God and Abraham is unlike any other. All right? And when I say God here, I do mean not only Christ and the angels, but the Most High. All right? Christ and the angels are only ever representatives for the Most High, right? The Father. So why would the Father ask Abraham to sacrifice his only son? All right? It's because the Father knew that he was going to have to do that same thing. And something I want to point out, I believe this is in Isaiah 41. I don't think this is the only scripture that say it, but I believe it does say it in Isaiah 41. Isaiah 41:8, maybe? I might be tripping. I might have to look for it. But, yes, Isaiah 41:8. So this is completely out of context, but the words that this verse uses specifically, I want to use here. Isaiah 41:8. But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. So this is what the Lord's saying about Abraham. He said, Abraham was my friend. All right? He said, look, Israel is his servant, right? Moses was his servant. Abraham was his friend. All right? That's a whole different level. You know what I'm saying? Your servant is not necessarily your friend. All right? That's a whole nother level. So when it comes to Abraham, the Lord trusted Abraham. He had a relationship with Abraham that was unlike anyone else. He said, and for just as individuals, as people, we only make friends with like-minded people. You know what I'm saying? We're only ever friends with people that we have things in common with. All right? We share similar interests. We have similar goals. We have similar mindsets. That's what the Lord was trying to see about Abraham. He said, I like Abraham. I trust Abraham. But is he willing to do what I'm willing to do? Is he willing to sacrifice his only son the way that I'm going to have to? See, all this was planned from the beginning. But the Lord wanted to know if Abraham, are you my friend? Or are you just somebody who's been listening to me so far? Are you going to... Because you're already a servant of the Lord. You're already a prophet. You already got that down pat. But are you my friend, Abraham? Are you the same? Do you got the same mentality that I do when it comes to sacrificing your only son for the greater good, essentially? And Abraham did. He had faith that the Most High, he would resurrect Isaac from the dead, or as it says in verse 8 here, my son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. And that's what the Lord did for us with his only son. He'd give that lamb for a burnt offering. All right. Right. Seeing thou hast not withheld thy only son from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns, right? So that's the crown of thorns imagery. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah Jireh, Yahweh Yireh. As it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. Is that what that says? Seen? Is that what that means? Seen in the mount of the Lord. Where is this at? Where are we at? 22? Does it say Jehovah Jireh? Yes. The Lord will see, or the Lord will provide. All right. Based on what the context of the verse says, I would say the Lord shall see. On Yahweh Yireh. Yahweh Uriah, whatever. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. All right? So, the Lord said, I'm swearing by myself, because you can't get any higher than the Most High, right? So he can't swear by anybody but himself. So, he said, look, I swear by myself that I'm going to bless you the way that I always promised. And then some, right? So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they arose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt at Beersheba, right? So there we are in Beersheba. I just pointed out Beersheba, but Mount Moriah is is in Jerusalem. Mount Moriah is Jerusalem. That's where the temple was in Mount Moriah, in the same area where Abraham took up his son Isaac. So they traveled back down from there to Beersheba down here. All right, so that's like a 3 days journey, back then at least. Yeah. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor, Huz his firstborn, Buz his brother, Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begat Rebekah. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And his concubine, whose name was Rumah, she bare also Teba, and Gaham, and Thahash, and Maacah. Right, so these are Semites in the region, Semitic peoples in the region, but not of the chosen seed, but still family to Abraham. All right. And this is, as it says here, this is where Rebekah comes from. All right, Rebekah and Laban, that's where they come from. They come from Bethuel.